Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. We have Gordon Davis on the line, and he is the co-author in the book about Cashup Davis, which we're going to get into that today, and we're going to do a deep dive. I'm excited to draw out that story and what he and what the other author did on that, Jeff Burnside, which they have a whole story behind that too as well. We'll be getting into that. And Gordon is also the president of the Gordon and Joyce Davis Foundation. Gordon, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks, Adam, for having me.
All right, Gordon. So we got a lot to talk about, and a big shout out first off to Aaron Alejandro out there, Texas FFA, for introducing us both today and for getting you booked on the show. So thank you for that. And just to get us kicked off, Gordon, we're going to start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Gordon, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Gordon, what mission matters to you?
Well, if I've gotten older, it's really all about happiness to me. I found a proverb that says it best. Adam, if you want to be happy for 1 hour, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a day, take a nap. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. But if you want to be happy for a lifetime, help someone else. Yeah. And basically, this book, since Cashup died in 1896, there's not going to be much new information come out in the book, I don't think. And we think it'll help a lot of people for a lifetime. And I'll be happy about that. And a lot of them I'll never meet. And CEV, we think we've reached about 100 million students over the years. A lot of them I'll never meet, of course. I like that. Happiness for a lifetime.
It's great. Awesome having you on, and love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and individuals on the line to share, why they do what they do, share their life's journey, how they got to where they are, and really some of the lessons and things that we can all draw and take from that so that we can all grow together, because that's what it's all about. So again, great to have you on. So Gordon, I want to start a little bit earlier in your career for maybe some of those that haven't caught your other interviews and things that you have out there. Like, how did you get started in business?
Well, raised on a wheat farm for 3 years, real close to Steptoe Butte, where the Cashup story was kind of centralized. And then a dairy farm for 13 years in Deer Park, Washington. That's where I got my work ethic. Yeah. As the first significant award I was ever associated with, because we were Dairy Family of the Year in the state of Washington in '64. And I thought, well, gosh, if I could be a part of something like that, maybe we could be part of something bigger and better. Then I went to Washington State University, where I got my start, and joined Sigma Chi fraternity, which was awesome. Got a great experience at Sigma Chi fraternity. And by the way, that's where I met Jeff. Yeah. And so where we got working together. And then from there, got 2 degrees at Washington State University in '68, '69 in education and agricultural sciences. Then went on and taught 3 years. I always wanted to be a teacher. And I just love kids, always have. And then went and got a master's PhD at Texas A&M in 1972 to 77 in my favorite subject, which was meat science and muscle biology. Yeah. And then academia career at University of Tennessee and Texas Tech, research positions, coaching and judging teams. And then started CEV part-time in 1984. And I made a decision when I was 26. I want to be financially independent. And part of that, probably that decision might have been from Cashup. I knew the story when I was a boy, and I thought he always wanted to be financially independent. I'm not so sure that was the case. I think he just wanted to finance his next gig. And so anyway, I decided I was going to try to be financially independent. I knew it needed a good idea, and I wanted to do it by age 50. And my definition of financially independent was if you had $5 million in the bank, that would be financially independent. Because I like to have fun. Yeah. I like to go places. I just love to have a good time. And that costs money and time. And so anyway, and of course, like to play golf and et cetera. And I don't necessarily want to play in Lubbock. I want to play everywhere. And so anyway, career, one thing led to another. And we became financially independent at age 60. And now I'm 77 and just having fun and trying to help some other people. And it's been a tremendous career, 2 careers. one in academia, and then one with the business, which is ICEV.
Mm-hmm. So first off, it's an amazing career, and I want to stick, if I can, in the earlier days a little bit longer, and I'll tell you why. So, I interview thousands of people. I think over 5,000 interviews easily at this point in my career, and I think I'm just getting started. But I wide range of different things, and I know that this isn't everybody's belief, but I'll throw out the stereotype, and that is, as teachers, if you chose that path, if you went to school for that, if you want to give back in that manner, that you can't make money, you can't be financially independent. Like, I don't believe that, but I've heard it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And I remember when I was coming up and when I was in school, I want to be an artist. That was my passion. That's all I did. I designed clothes, did a lot of different things that I know my listeners hearing me say that will probably be pretty shocked by that, but that's all I did. That was my whole life for quite a few years. And it wasn't until I was, in high school and I was, told by a guidance counselor, et cetera, that if I wanted to make money, I had to go into business. That's the path I had to go. So I know there's a lot of teachers, there's a lot of individuals in education that'll be out there that'll watch this at some point, either now or at some point. And I just don't feel I feel like at the core of all this, we're trying to add value. And if being financially independent was your goal, doesn't mean you can't teach. It doesn't mean that you can't, add value to the system. It just means maybe that you have to figure out how to add more. What would your comments be around going into the teaching profession and being a teacher and also achieving financial independence? Is it possible for more?
Pretty tough. Yeah. It's upset, to tell you the truth. It's probably about a 30-point upset if you're betting on football. And I just knew I had to have a good idea.
Yeah.
And I was told when I went to college by the fraternity guys that maybe I ought to think about going to law school. Yeah. And I said, no, I want to be a teacher. I just love the kids. I love teaching. And so I was told early on, read all you can, pay attention. And I could see in the early 80s when I was teaching at Texas Tech University, the kids were looking off and so forth. And when I went to school in the 50s and 60s, grade school and high school, and then in college in the 1960s, we paid attention. We'd take our little notes and we have our pencil there and we didn't miss anything. And you take 4 or 5 pages of notes in class and you had an attention span of 50 minutes. Well, I could see that the kids had less attention span. That was even in the early 80s. And so the basic idea was to bring the expert to the classroom. And I also figured out in teaching agriculture, not everybody knows everything. Mm-hmm. I was a meat scientist, and I started teaching horticulture and forestry when I was at Lake Stevens High School. And I noticed I didn't know anything about the subjects, but I couldn't find much. I'd love to have some video. The trouble with slides, we had slides in those days. The problem is you had to know something if you showed a slide. And so I'd put a slide up there and I see some red flowers and I go, well, okay, what's the name of the red flowers? So then I got my PhD in meat science and I did a clinic, a meat judging clinic at Texas. And I noticed that teachers were asking me some of the same. I was Dr. Davis then. Yeah. And here I was, some authority in meat science, and they'd ask me some of the same stupid questions that I was asking 13 years earlier when I was sitting at a horticulture symposium or a clinic or something. Yeah. And I thought, oh, not everybody knows everything. So all I have to do is just bring the expert to the classroom, and it worked. And now we've employed over 1,900 different collaborators. Some of them are the best in the world at what they do. And we've taken on about virtually hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And we've never had a collaborator ever turn us down, Adam.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
On video, talk about their field.
I wish I could claim that I never had a person turn me down for an interview, Gordon. Come on, man. That's awesome. So I want to draw out something about what you just said in that example, because again, having talked to thousands of people, many, many different professions. Like what I see here is that you found a problem and you found something where you can add more value. So not everybody. So think about all the individuals. So the technology, and I want to talk about this in a moment, but like VHS where you started, right? Like the technology was there to do something. And so when I look at some like pioneers, which I would completely consider you in this space, and just like Cashup was a pioneer in what he was doing, and we'll go into that as well in a moment. But like you were finding a way to innovate, you were finding a way to solve problems, you were finding a way to add value. And I see people do this. You know, there's somebody that out there, different professions, just use another one. There's a difference between, you know, maybe the orthodontist that goes in, does their job every day, or the dentist, or, you know, name the profession. Then there's the person that says, okay, I'm doing this, but there's also maybe a better way to do it, or another way to do it, or another thing I can add to the system that can add value. And in doing that, many achieve financial independence, and they're able to provide more value just across the market in whatever their field is. So I just wanted to draw that out, because as I was kind of researching Cashup, reading the book, and I'm looking at your career further and further, I'm like, okay, just for all reality, you were a teacher when you started, and you found a problem, and let's get further into that, but you found a way to add value, and then look what happens many years later. So I think it's really interesting for people to take a look at that, and to look at themselves and maybe what they want to do for whatever their goals are. Not everybody's goal is to build a big company, right? It doesn't have to be that, but whatever your goal is, to just understand that you can add value wherever you're at with what you're doing. So I want to jump around here a little bit, but stay on theme for a moment, Gordon. So the transition. So when I say you're a pioneer in your field, when people are talking about online education right now, because, well, what happens when there was no online, right? What happens in some of the earlier days, and what did that look like? Because now everybody can, you know, be online and maybe give some value, which I love in terms of their expertise, that is. But like, how did it start? Take us back to the VHS days, to CDs, to online. Like, what did that look like? And I know it's a long span, but give us the high level of what it looks like to pioneer in that field.
Well, when I was in college in the 1960s, teachers wrote everything on the board and just took notes. And then a little bit later, they had overhead transparencies. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you took notes, they talk about those. And then sometimes a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. And then you get a teacher that has some slides, good slides. Yeah. And they put a slide up there of a plant or an animal or welding or whatever it is, and they talk about the slide. And then what I found out with VHS, you had the combination of the picture and the expert. And it took me a while to figure this out, but the teachers really liked the audio. They wanted the content expert, because if they want to see a flower and they don't know the name of it, they can go find the flower. Yeah. But you got to be able to talk about it, or talk about the disease, or talk about the particular Microsoft, or whatever the topic is you're talking about. But you need the expert that can communicate that. And then I found out that I might have been an expert in some stuff, but I just sought out the best people. University of Wisconsin, Dr. Dixon and Dr. Harold in welding there at Sam Houston State University, and Dr. Pond in nutrition at Texas Tech University, and so many more. Mm-hmm. Just people that are really articulate and knew the subject inside and out and backwards. And the subjects that I put on video, the first ones are 1981. Mm-hmm. I'd already taught the subject. I'd been teaching the same subject since 1972. Wow. But slides and a blackboard. So the knowledge of the subject was easy. And I taught it many, many times. And so all it was just go into another medium, and then sat down and wrote the first script, kind of an outline for the first educational video for career and technical education nationally in 1981 on my kitchen table. Those that I know is going to end up being an empire. I had no idea that we'd reach that many kids over all these years. We just kept getting bigger and better, and adding more subjects and more ideas, and we tried to go experiential education, and not just, in other words, hands-on things. A small gas engine repair, take an engine apart and put it together. I already mentioned, building construction, building a building from the bottom to the top, put it all on video and explain, etc. along the way. Got into wildlife, got into plant identification, got into Ducks Unlimited, And got into business and housing and fashion and so many subjects,
Yeah.
etc. But anyway, all these experiential education with really top people explaining it that have taught it, and it just rolls off. Anybody with notes, we didn't use anyone ever that had to use notes.
Yeah.
They had to have it all, just look in the camera, and that was it. And we just told people to just teach like usual. They edit it down and make it look good and go on, and it's worked. Then went from VHS, then to DVD, VHS 1984 to 2001, then DVD from 2001 to 2011, and then we went online. Each one of them was a risk.
Yeah.
We jumped to each one, and we lost competitors along the way because they didn't want to take the risk. And you're looking at $500,000 at least risk each time you take a shot. And so that was good because a lot of competitors decided not to keep up.
What you just described may sound like common right now, like in terms of the idea of like how you can teach and deliver. So for many, but I'm guessing, I never asked you this question before, but how was it received initially? I'm guessing that there's probably some people that were in the market that are like, wait a minute, Gordon, you're a teacher and you're going to do what? You want a video or like in general, or will people buy it? Is there a market for how was that received originally?
It's a home run from day one.
Oh, that's amazing.
You just absolute home run. I mean, I made the first tapes there at Texas Tech. I had this one teacher call me. He said, Dr. Davis, I need those tapes on meat identification and so forth. I said, no, they weren't very good. They belonged to the university. And I said, I can't say those because I've worked in the university. He calls back in, same question. Called back in, same question. I went to my boss, department chairman, then the dean and the president of the university. Said, look, I'll make you these tapes for meat science, but you have all these other PhDs, and we could have our name all over the world. And turns out everybody said no, but they said you can consult 8 hours a week. And that was really a good decision for Texas Tech University because they're not set up to run a business.
Yeah.
They're an educational institution. Yeah. But you do have the University of Phoenix now and Arizona State, Purdue University, and others that are leaders in online education. So I think we're ahead of our time there. And I think the schools that are doing a lot of online, the key to online is not talking heads. They got to be doing something. It's got to be interesting, got to be edited. It's got to be crisp, and it's got to be live. You got to have questions, activities, projects. And to work for today's learner, not just a standard old lecture for 50 minutes on a video, which would be absolutely terrible. But some of them do that and give credit for it, when I think it's awful. So
I completely agree with that, and it's interesting because when I was in school, maybe online was just kind of getting really on board at the universities and in colleges, and I remember some of the original content versus now what colleges or just online are doing in general, and I'm like, oh man, like it's night and day. Like people are really learning how to make sure that the learner that they really get value out of that and that they retain it. And just speaking of just growth, like how many people roughly have been are being reached now by the overall platform? Like just roughly, I know it's a big number. So
we think the total number that we've reached in the history of the company is about 100 million students on a national and global basis.
Absolutely amazing. All right, I want to jump around a bit here because I do want to spend time on the book, of course, but I wanted to kind of lay out part of your career and just things that were on my mind as I've been digging in this book and also in your background as well. So Cashup Davis, I know that you wrote it again with a fraternity brother who is also a known investigative reporter and journalist. How was it like putting together this book? Because I saw like a lot of the things that are described into the research and things that went into actually like digging up and finding as much of the story as possible. I think I also saw a picture of you in the book as well, like up on the butte and just all these other things. Like, what was that journey like of just putting the book together for you?
Well, it was a fun journey.
Yeah.
3 years. And Jeff took the lead on it. He's an investigative journalist and he can probe and probe and probe. He's just relentless. One of my philosophies is pursuit of excellence, and he pursued excellence. And I thought about this book project for 30, 40 years. I had two regrets. I never wrote the book on Cashup Davis and never saw Elvis in person. And so now I only have one regret, thanks to Jeff Burnside. But Jeff, he just determined, he got to the bottom of it. He came up with stuff in that book that I wasn't sure there's even enough material out there to even have a book.
Yeah.
But the process was very invigorating. And there'd be a lot of texts and emails going back and forth where we talk about what the latest thing he's uncovered and this and that. And what I think I've been through the book about 5 times. Yeah. And we got talking about senior author. He wanted me to be the senior author because Cashup was my mentor, secret mentor. And I said, oh, no, you did the work. Put me in the second spot. Yeah. And you be the first guy. Yeah. And, of course, he's won 10 Emmys, 3 national Emmys. He's a very bright, penetrating person. And he got the Cashup crew, which is a group of people that help dig out stuff out of attics and trunks and microfilm, newspapers, and so forth. So, because Cashup died in 1896, that was one of the biggest challenges on this thing. How in the world can we tell a story about somebody that died in 1896? And so I was going on in my career. I sold the company during all this. The company was growing and growing and growing. We tripled in sales in 2020 during the COVID. And the company increased value that year substantially. And so this was just a side thing. And I've always kind of been a workaholic. And so just found time to work on it here and there and try to be responsive to all the deadlines and help out Jeff all I could. But he was the leader.
Yeah. And for the listeners and viewers, just so you know, so the Cashup crew, and just to elaborate on that a little bit more, because I definitely want everybody that's watching this to go pick up a copy of this book because it's very unique. Like, so the idea was that, Cashup's been gone for quite some time, and like how much stuff could you actually find that was going to tell the story? So it was kind of like a community effort on digging up like what they could find. So meaning whether it's like you said, Gordon, whether it was, is there something in your a memory, a family memory, a memento, something in your attic, like a relic, and collecting all of these stories. To me, that was inspiring because I'm like, there's no other way to put a book together like this. And my hat goes off to Jeff 100% on because I'm thinking about like, how would you even tackle this? And I'm like, oh, you could only be done with a skill set like Jeff's that would want to go and even think like, how are we going to dig up all of this stuff so we could create a book that is not just honoring, but also that is, historically accurate to Cashup's legacy. I thought it was amazing.
Thank you. And the book is written. A lot of people now are my friends that some read books all the time. Some read 1,000 books. Others just read a couple pages at a time and go to sleep. But not a lot of them are getting done. And one of the comments that a lot of these people make out of respect is this unbelievable effort to dig out all this stuff. And the question is this a movie? And it might be. We'll wait and see if anybody in the movie business wants to talk to us. Yeah. But the script is right there. And I just think it shows the reality. I ended up with a tremendous amount of respect for pioneers and not knowing what's around the corner as they go from east to west. And Ohio, in the 1800s was considered west, but there was there were just a plethora of people that wanted to go west and wanted to explore it. And it was a major interest. And by golly, old Cashup says, I want to go west. And he who knows what was around the corner and some of the pitfalls they had, which I don't think the movies today really give pioneers the credit they should. Yeah. Some of my favorite movies are, like Tombstone, Yellowstone, maybe Lonesome Dove, maybe Gunsmoke. Well, it's gambling, shoot 'em up, bars, alcohol, fights. And they kind of refer to farmers like sodbusters. But, those pioneers, they had to feed their families. And they had 6 to 12 people in their families. And they had to find some land where they could cultivate it and grow something and then maybe feed that to the animals. and so they could have a source of income and at least a source of food. But the perils of doing that and the challenges of doing that, I just ended up with a lot of respect for pioneers, period. Now, in the Northwest, Cashup was one of the most famous ones, no doubt. So much because his name was Cashup and not Frank Smith or something.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you're going to have a story unless you had the Cashup name, but nevertheless, at the pioneers, I just ended up with a lot of respect for him, and I think Jeff did a great job of pulling that out.
Yeah. And I look when you say it's a movie, it's an obvious movie. Just even the title is obvious, Cashup. I mean, it's there. Like, that's just like people, you hear that and you're like, you want to know more. So you can see how, like, him just going through his career and what he was, which I saw like a big, I mean, he was 100% a promoter of the day. He was definitely somebody that other people rallied around as an entrepreneur. I don't think that's the word they were using back then, but they were rallying around him. And when I look at that, and then when I kind of think about like what you were doing and how you were pioneering education, really, and delivering value into the classroom and to the tune of, over the span of the company, over 100 million students possibly, or more, right? I think it's really interesting. And so part of the story and what a lot of this centers around, just to give a little bit, we're not going to give too much of the book away, because I definitely want people to go pick up a copy and to dig in and have the experience I did of digging into it, and really a treasure trove of a book. But one of the big things that this centers around is, at a certain age, as Cashup went through his career, it was building this, this big hotel up on Step Butte. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, as an entrepreneur, like how to I couldn't even create an analogy for that, but it was a huge task. Like, who looks at this butte and says, that's where I want my hotel to be? You've obviously been telling this story and been around it your entire life. What do you think, if you could put yourself in his shoes, what are some of the things that you think led him to do that?
Well, pursuit of excellence. He always wanted to go to the next level. And I don't think I wanted to become financially independent, but I think he just wanted to finance his next big vision, the next project. And so when the railroads came through in the early 1880s, he decided, and it shut his stagecoach operation down. So he said, what's next? And I love that. What's next?
Yeah.
People have been asking me that even now since I've sold the company. And so he said, well, I think I'm going to put a hotel up on top of the Steptoe Butte. And a lot of people told me it's crazy. And if you drive down there, if you see it, it's a glacier formed butte. It rises up about 3,600 feet. And you'd have to be a pretty good shape to even walk up there, just to climb it. And it's rocks. Yeah. And he at age 70, he took on this project at age 70, put his whole fortune into the project. And he bought the butte, the first thing he did. And then the next thing it is build a switchback road up there. And if you look at the butte now, you'll see it's a lot of it just rocks. And so they had to have a road so they could go up and down with buggies. And remember, there's no motorized vehicles in those days. It's a pick and shovel, dynamite, horse type deal to even build the road up there. And today, when you drive up there, it takes about 15 minutes. And you just wonder, how in the world could a man at age 70 even engineer and figure it out and get up there and do that? And of course, he hired a man named Mr. Kearns to build the hotel itself on top of the mountain, on top of the butte once he got it done. It opened up on July 4th, 1888.
And if you think about, like, I mean, there's so much to unpack in that, and there's only going to be so much time in this interview, but I'm just trying to put myself into the shoes of what that took to hire the builder, to hire the crew, to hire the people, to hire the staff. Like, every piece of that was a sales job. Because a builder, like, their time, their effort, this isn't for anybody that's been in real estate development, right? Like, there's a risk on all sides at all times. Like, that's just the way it is. And you're deciding what project you want to take, right? But just in general, like, can you imagine the sales job and selling that idea to everybody on the whole supply chain, including the person that was going to be working there, serving the drinks, serving the cocktails, whatever else they were doing? Like, I can't even imagine how many layers and what that took to put that project together. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they had to build that hotel. Thing is, on top of the butte, you got the wind, and they had to build a hotel that, for heaven's sakes, it wouldn't blow over. Of course, it burned down in 1911, but to build a thing to where it would stand there and the time, and it did.
Yeah.
I couldn't build a birdhouse.
You and me both.
Terrible. I couldn't build it in shop projects. A doghouse would be a stretch for me. I have no talent like that whatsoever. So it's hard for me to even imagine how you could build a luxury hotel. And I've always thought, in a remote part of the country, I've always thought that in 41 was the first luxury hotel built in Las Vegas. And he had the idea of bringing some joy to people in a remote part of the country at a time where they didn't have much joy. And he built that in 1885 to 1888. Yeah. So I think he's way ahead of his time by 50, 60 years. And I give him a lot of credit for that. And there weren't any luxury hotels around, even in Spokane and other places. That was a place to sleep. And this was a place to have fun. This is a place to dance and be merry and have a big time. That was his idea. Again, bringing happiness is what I said at the beginning. Not that I run any kind of hotel, and I sure can't dance very well. So apparently the dances went until dawn. They just went on and on and on.
Have had, a series of, let's just say, setbacks in his life. If it like the one that you mentioned in terms of like what led him to originally look at that butte and say, I want to build a hotel up there, right? And a series of setbacks. And I know in your particular career, like when you set up that company, it was a home run from day one, and it grew, right? And it kept growing. But I'm just curious to ask, if you were, and this is a big what if question, like if you had to start all over, and let's just say age and like everything else like aside, if you're saying, and you had to start over in a similar situation as Cashup, like what industries or what would you be looking at? Like what kind of things would interest you today?
Oh, maybe the financial world. I'd probably enjoy the whole banking industry. I'm pretty heavy in the stock market. I enjoy that, but I don't know. I don't really have any regrets to speak of other than not seeing Elvis. It's just, things have really, really worked out for me. Yeah. And it's just blind luck. And we had one hiccup where, I remember I won payroll one time in spring of 2004 in a poker game. So things were a little bit tight then. But we got through it.
Hold on, I can't let you. Did I hear that right? You won payroll in a poker game? Come on.
I played pot limit poker my whole life. Yeah. And well, not my whole life. Yeah. Nickel dime quarter at Deer Park, nickel dime quarter, 50 cent in the last card at Washington State. And I went teaching. The last card was $5, and I came to Texas. It was pot limit. Wow. So I've seen some big pots. Yeah. And I like that. I like taking chances. And we were hurting. Of course, didn't have very many employees. I think it was only like 10,000 or so, but it's still a pretty good night. And people ask, what happened if you would have lost that night? I said, well, I would have had to go see Joyce and get some of our equity that was in our house. We had some equity put away because we moved out of our house into a rent house while we waited for the dust to clear. And she said okay with that. And I said, as soon as we pull this off, then I'll build your house, which I did. And I never did have to ask her. Money. Thanks for that poker game.
Oh man. So in kind of looking at, and when again, hats off to Jeff and yourself on curating this and what actually went into the book. So as I saw like some of the pictures of the historical, we'll say artifacts and clippings and other things, one that really stuck out to me was, I think it was in, off the top of my head, the Spokane News, or it was in a newspaper, a big newspaper though at the time and out there. And it basically said this. So this was after Cashup's death. So it said a couple of lines in it where one of them was, was one of the oldest and most eccentric men of the country. And then it said owned Steptoe Butte. And that just it hit me, because when I read something like that, it causes me to reflect on things like, the word legacy, right? And all of our legacy and our time on this earth, myself included. And I'd be interested to hear from your end of the spectrum. Like, what do you hope you'll be remembered for?
Helping somebody else, helping Washington State University, helping the Texas FFA, helping FFA period, helping the meat science students at Texas Tech, the students at Davis College at Texas Tech, helping all of our customers with a little bit of information that's buried in the CV library. CV library has over 60,000 edited minutes of video and virtually hundreds of subjects. And matter of fact, this year, I heard that just through October, it had already been 300 million questions answered online. Yeah. And that's just an unbelievable number. It's used and used and used. And these are people I'll never meet and never see again. And also all the assistants and the employees, the partners of the company, so many people have helped me get to where I'm at. And Joyce, a great mentor for me, and I come up with some idea that's not too smart, she's pretty quick to show me. Cashup had Marianne, and she's a lovely lady. 11 kids in 22 years, and he drug her around, moved her 7 times, and finally got to the point there in the early 80s, and she said, "Okay, you're done. You're not moving me anymore. I'm set. I'm not going to British Columbia." And but you need a good, strong woman in your life too. And I have some terrific friends that have been with me for my whole life, and some of them over 50 years, some of them over 20 or 30, and I depend on them to say, what do you think about this and that? And then with the book, and then with the sale of the company, there's been a lot of opportunities come my way, and I got to sort through them and decide what I'm going to do. My chief of staff is Matt Owens. I've got one employee now, and he's awesome, and he's my friend, and he's young, and I like that, and smart. I like that, and we have a good time. But I don't want to have a big empire anymore. I don't want to have a lot of employees. And matter of fact, his bonus this year is based on how much fun I have this year.
That's what I'm talking about. And I know he's in the background listening somewhere over there too. So Matt, a big shout out to you and making sure that Gordon is having some fun so you get a good bonus.
We're having fun right now, Adam.
It's amazing.
And I think it's important to have fun.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Cashup. Yeah. What he did with all those dances and everything on Steptoe Butte is people came up there to have some fun. And most of them had a tough old life. Living in a sod house or an old house of pretty limited lumber, and there wasn't any heating and air conditioning, and out there working in the fields and so forth. I mean, life wasn't easy, hardly for anybody in the 1800s. And we'd be in a heck of a shape now if all of us had to go back and be the pioneers in the 1800s. We'd be in trouble. I would have been the worst pioneer, because I wouldn't have my TV and my cell phone and ESPN and my golf clubs. And I actually have to go out there in the field and work. I probably could have adapted because we didn't know any better. But
and going back to what you said earlier about the pioneers maybe not getting enough credit, like the infrastructure that we have today without their sacrifice wouldn't exist. Like the coast to coast, right? Like the two oceans, the two coasts, the infrastructure in between, they didn't have that, things that we sometimes take for granted. So I like the way you pay respect to that, because it should be done like that. Not just with you bringing the story and life of Cashup to life and making sure that legacy lives on and people can benefit from it, but also the respect that you pay to those those that went before you that I think sometimes we don't always do enough of, just in the media or otherwise. So I think overall, I highly enjoyed the book. I feel like Cashup has become one of my secret mentors, and this is definitely a book that I'll continue to pass on to people along the lines of the Think and Grow Riches, or the How to Win Friends and Influence People, and just some of those classics. Like, I definitely think that there's going to be a place for the Cashup story there, and hope to see the movie as well. And I know that's between Matt, you, Jeff, your team. I mean, somebody's going to make that happen, because just the title alone, Cashup, like, who doesn't want to go see that? So I think there's going to be a whole lot more legs in this story and a whole lot more people involved with it. And I'm happy to bring it to our audience. And Gordon, just have to say, it has been excellent having you on the show as well. To leave it off, if somebody wants to pick up a copy of the book and to just learn more and to follow the Cashup story in general, like, what are some ways for them to do that? Obviously, Amazon's a big one. What are some ways?
Go to cashupdavis.com. Cashupdavis.com. And I think you can find some more information there. And the book, well, it's printed on a good paper. It's written kind of, a lady that has read a lot of books said, it's kind of written in a colloquial style. Mm-hmm. So that anybody can read it. You don't have to be a neurosurgeon to be able to read them and understand the book. It's a fun story to read. And the way Jeff wrote it was each chapter ended with a sentence or two that kind of tantalized you to read the next chapter. Mm-hmm. The next chapter. And it's a story that's really basically hasn't been told much. There's not many people know much about this story at all. Because you think about all those movies I mentioned, Lonesome Dove and Yellowstone, all that. Well, those are pretty well from Texas to Montana. Now we're moving over to Washington State. That's where this story is. It's pretty well in Washington State. And you're talking about a guy that landed in New York, goes to Ohio. He's there a couple of years, and then to Wisconsin, 22 years, 11 kids, and then to Iowa for about 5 years, then heads to McMinnville, Oregon somehow, and then goes down the Snake River and then a mule and gets up into the Palouse country of Washington State, which is a great country, and that's where he becomes famous, right there. Yeah. But he who knows what was around every corner, and he had some bad luck, as we all know. It's in the book. Yeah, tough times that a lot of us would really shrivel if we were faced with the same type problems. And those people, those pioneers, just kept rock and rolling. So yeah, I encourage people. I think you're going to find it be a pretty good. Some critics of mine that would tell me it was a sorry book. They told me that this book might be among their top 10% of the books they've read. That's the people that have read a lot of books. Yeah. And I think it's a pretty good story. I'm biased, but I won't make any money off the book. I don't plan to. The proceeds from my side is going to go to Washington State University and Texas Tech University for various endowments that I've set up over the years. Yeah. It's great. It's not going to make a deal at all.
It's a great story, and we'll put, by the way, for everybody watching this, we'll put the link to cashupdavis.com on in the show notes and on the website, so you can just click on the link and head right on over and pick up a copy. And obviously, it's on Amazon too, so pick it up there too. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time listening to a Mission Matters episode or engaging with the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and experts, and having them share their vision, their business, their mission, how they got to where they're at, and really, the ups and downs, everything in between. And what can we all learn from that information and that content? Because ultimately, we all want to grow together, right? That's the goal. If that sounds interesting or engaging or fun to you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Gordon, really, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your story, of course, and also the Cashup legacy. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. You do a good job. You're a pro.